Welcome to Policy Chats, the official podcast of the UC Riverside School of Public Policy. I'm your host, Dori Pham. Join me and my fellow public policy classmates as we explore potential policy solutions for today's most pressing societal challenges. Thank you so much for joining us today, Councilmember Cervantes. We are honored to have you on the Policy Chats podcast. Your service on the Riverside City Council and your years as a community advocate reflect a deep commitment to housing, um, affordable housing, youth empowerment, and environmental justice. As an Inland Empire leader and a CSU Northridge graduate, you work at the front line of the city policy where choices about land use, neighborhood investment, and public services shape daily life. Cities like Riverside face real constraints while trying to deliver opportunity and dignity for every resident. Yet, even in tight budgets, local innovation, um, these can unlock abundance through smart partnership, clear accountability, and inclusive planning. As our school celebrates its 10-year anniversary with the theme of creating a thriving, prosperous, and abundant world, we are excited to learn from your experience on how city leadership can build abundant communities block by block. So, for our listeners who do not follow City Hall closely, can you tell us a bit more about a council member responsibilities for day to day, and why does this work matter for residents, especially in Ward 2, your ward which you oversee, and across Riverside?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. It's an honor to be here with you all and have this discussion and so answer some questions. So for myself, Clarissa Cervantes, Riverside City Council member, I represent Ward 2. So I think what folks don't really realize is that your council member, your local elected officials have the power to have a great impact in your day-to-day lives. We deal from, I will say we have constituent cases that could be from as extreme as individuals that we are literally helping to find and seek and attain housing, to families that are in need of food insecurity, to constituent cases that are quality of life challenges in neighborhoods that are very unique, but then we have to find creative solutions to help to make people, and not make people, help people live their best lives as possible. And that built environment in a very unique, interesting way is how your local government has a lot of tools available to have an impact. And so I think that when we talk about, it's literally, with Santa Ana winds, like a tree falling down, like, your council member or someone can help to make sure you can get a road clear in a matter of minutes or within an hour. So there are some like very basic and essential things like that we can do to provide service. But then on a grander scale, we have policy, we have initiatives, we have visions of how we want to build out and drive and create the city that people are living in and moving in. And then you have to do that, I believe, with great intention. So there are many layers. Of course, funding's a whole other layer, is of course budgeting, making sure that we have a budget that is balanced so that we're not in a deficit, that we can actually fund to make sure we're growing our city in a healthy way fiscally. But then with that, how do we apply those dollars? What is a priority? So then that's where I come in to advocate for priorities in Ward 2 and what is going to have the greatest, again, quality of life impact on the residents that I was elected to represent. And I am their voice to represent Ward 2 in those neighborhoods, which is about roughly 45,000 to potentially 50,000 residents that we each have in our wards. However, we don't factor in UCR, and I have UCR, and that's an even greater population, of course, that we have. And it's the same for other college campuses in other parts of the city, but 330,000 people, that's roughly our population, and we're growing rapidly. So I will just say your council members have a huge impact, not just in our individual wards, but as a city as a whole, as we vote to make every day, every week we take votes, every other week, and every day we're having huge impacts in people here in Riverside.
So, as a follow-up to that, how do you stay in touch with your constituents to make sure that you're really representing their needs and responding to any struggles that they might be facing in the community?
Of course. So we take a lot of pride. We have very many neighborhood meetings. I think we have about 7 a month, sometimes up to 10 if there's other like community city departments we have to collaborate with to bring like certain items to be heard. So I would say actually it ranges from anywhere from at minimum 7, but probably up to 15, like different neighborhood and community standing meetings that take place. I personally attend majority. I'd say about 7 or 8 of them. My team helps me attend the rest of them. And if I have a conflict with my other job that I have as well. So, or, being a mother just to share. So I'm really grateful for my team that helps me balance that. But we attend these meetings and that's us immersing and meeting folks, right in the neighborhood. So these are all neighborhood meetings. So like Canyon Crest has their own one, Sycamore Canyon. The East Side has several university neighborhoods. So, and I can go on, and Mission Grove Alliance. So all neighborhoods have their own unique issues. So with that, each neighborhood community meeting we have addresses those unique issues. And I think that's how we really get to making sure that we can solve the issues that are very specific, right, to what these people are. I mean, and the people that in each neighborhood, I mean, it's again several thousand people. So, this is having an impact on a good handful of folks. And so when we can solve issues, we are actually helping to solve like concerns for hundreds, if not thousands of people every week with like different really creative and unique approaches. And some are short-term solutions that we can get done quickly. And then others are long-term, take planning, take time. But we have those meetings monthly. So the community gets access to me in my office on a day-to-day basis, really.
That's wonderful. Kind of in the same vein, in October, you recommended a resolution to affirm the importance of identification protocols and monitoring of immigration enforcement personnel. What was the process of writing this resolution? And similar to my previous question, how active of a role did the input of the community members play in its development?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, we were very proud to get that resolution passed just recently, and it took 3 months of work just to share. It was a lot of background work behind the scenes. Some of the partners at the table included Chirla. They were one of the ones who helped me co-author it, along with Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice, IC4IJ. And then with that, we also pulled in, so they were helping me to draft the initial language, but then we took that language and then we met with Riverside Police Department. I met with the chief and one of his representatives, and we helped to receive input on the language for some changes. We also met with other department heads to make sure that they were also in a space with some areas that were good. But then with community, we worked with Riverside Latino Network, Spanish Town Heritage Foundation. We worked with the Human Relations Commission. I actually ended up sending the item there first. So when we had a draft ready, and we did circulate it and met with also a couple other like community leaders and groups in neighborhoods that were specifically organizing and addressing immigration raids. And we asked them questions to get their feedback, make sure we didn't miss any areas. And folks really at the end of the day felt that this was a very strong, well-crafted written. I've been told that this is one of the strongest resolutions in California in terms of language that was passed and adopted, which we're very proud of. That's incredible. And so that though was crafted with community, right? That they helped to drive and make sure that we covered important areas. So I was very proud. We had over 3 hours of public comment the night that got passed, and it was overwhelmingly majority support of community that spoke in favor of it. But I want to thank all the partners that helped us to get that across the finish line. We couldn't have done it without all of them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It's really interesting to hear, like the back end of policy writing and how like different parties affect the policy. So on that same note, on resolution number 24310, affirming the importance of transparency, community safety, public safety, and clear identification standards in federal immigration enforcement activities in the city of Riverside, which was recommended by you. Can you tell us a bit more about that resolution and how it affects residents within Riverside and within the broader IE region?
Of course, yes, thank you. So I'll say that what really spurred to take action to bring this resolution to City Council was several raids that we saw were taking place in the city, but there was one that took place in July where over 8 people were believed to have, or that's how many we were able to account for. There could have been more. Were taken from the Home Depot off of Madison and Casablanca. As you can imagine, there were masked individuals, guns drawn, unmarked vehicles, refusing to identify themselves, and taking people, day labor workers, in the parking lot People were in fear. There was recording videos of the incident that took place that were on social media. And I will just say that even before that, but even in that, specifically when that happened, my office, our phone has been going off the hook. I mean, almost every other day, we're having to get tips and leads about potentially ICE being in Riverside. My team will actively respond to help as much as we possibly can to get to sites, and we've gone out to go check to verify whether or not folks have been there. And it takes a great deal of and we've realized, we're hitting a point where we have to take action. We have to see what we can do as a local government. And I was inspired by other cities that took action in California before us, able to see even smaller cities than Riverside pass resolutions, and we're putting forward, immigrant relief justice funds to help families. And so seeing cities, truthfully smaller than us, having leadership to do this, I was like, we're the 12th largest city in California. We should be setting the example. And we have over 54% of our population that identifies as Latino, Latinx, but that doesn't factor in all the other mixed families as well. So in reality, we know our population in terms of representation, and people who are being racially discriminated against, racially profiled, people that look like me, that are fortunately, because of that Supreme Court ruling, it came to so many points where it's like, we have to do something. And that was what really prompted me to want to bring this forward. So within the resolution, what we included was, one, affirming our values as a city. Of course, that Riverside is a place where anyone, regardless of your citizenship status, your background, who you are, you belong here. If this is your home, you choose to be here, then this is your home. And we need to do what we can to make sure you have the best quality of life. So that's one thing. But also making sure that we're upholding state laws. So Riverside Police Department will then have to abide by state law. So it's just reaffirming again that if there is a violation, and new laws were signed by the governor to also address all of this, and I'm very grateful to our state legislature for the work they did, but several bills were adopted. And so in the language, we essentially affirm that Riverside Police Department will honor and abide by what is going to be the current and new state law. And then if again, folks, and that we condemn, we do not support folks being in the city that are masked, that are federal enforcement agents, that we can't, that's the thing with some of the language, we can't force, of course, so I had to work with the city attorneys to make sure we had language that essentially stated that we did not support, and that Riverside essentially does not believe that our support federal immigration agents coming into the city, being masked, unmarked vehicles, and encouraging them to the best of their ability to work with our local police department and making sure that they can identify themselves. But if they do not, and if members in the community are not able to receive those answers, our Riverside Police Department will respond, again, to the best of their ability, to be there to then confirm that these are in fact agents and that they are not people impersonating ICE or other agencies. And we have seen that happen. So this is where the community safety component came in, and the trust with public safety and even our local law enforcement. Because if we don't have this in place, we're breaking the trust that we've actually taken years, decades to rebuild with our local police force and our community. So I was really grateful for the chief who worked with me on that language to make sure that they knew as a police department, they could actually implement and do that. Then we also worked with our city manager's office to put forward language about civil right documentation. So if we do believe, or residents believe, their civil rights were violated, we'll have a portal online on a website that the city's going to have available where they can actually file claims that go and that are submitted through, I believe, Homeland Department Security, but they're going to be tracked by other lawyers, again, on the back end. And so civil right documentation is another piece, and then a public education awareness campaign. So the city is actually going to put together a website that's going to have all the Know Your Rights info, other free resources, and information for families that, again, if they have to do family plans, other pieces. So there's layers in it. I'll kind of leave it there. I'm happy to share a copy with you all that could be, linked or attached for folks to read it. But essentially, coming in December, the city manager's office is going to come back to city council and share what are the steps to roll out the education campaign, and what are we, again, doing and seeing how this resolution is being implemented and how it's being effective.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Listening to you, how you spearheaded the resolution number 24310, and working with the police chief and helping out residents in Riverside. As a follow-up, I was curious about what is the passion behind that drive to push out this resolution, and if you can, like, share, any personal experiences or any, struggles that you had, like, while, like, pushing for this resolution to happen.
Thank you so much. No, I appreciate that. I think it's very personal for me. So I'm a daughter my mother came from Mexico when she was a little girl. I'm a daughter of immigrants, a product of migration, as I like to say. My grandparents, they came over on my mother's side, came over from Mexico. And my dad, also some on my father's side, but, on my mother's side, I'm first generation. And I was able to see her become a U.S. citizen when I was a little girl. I had the privilege of being able to see her be sworn in. And I think for myself, it's just knowing the plight of our community and the fight, and that it honestly is unreal that we're here, but I feel that it is my responsibility, and it always has been my responsibility, to take care of our community, our people, especially those that are being targeted, are being oppressed. And right now we're seeing people's due process and our U.S. Constitution. I mean, our rights are being completely violated. And someone has to say something. We have to do something, and we can't allow to accept this. When we do, then we allow for it to become a norm. And I think for myself, I'll never allow. I know the oath of office I took to serve, to protect, and defend our Constitution and the people that are here in our great nation. And I take that oath very seriously. But I think for myself, my personal connection to, and beyond even my own personal connection, it's like this country was built by immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants. The only folks that are true is our indigenous, right, sovereign Indian nations that are the true, owners, of course, and caretakers of the land that we have the privilege to be here now. So it's just I think it's, of course, unsettling, but I think we have to remember that when we speak up, when we use our voice, that we have the power to, again, make sure that we are fighting for what is right, what is just for humanity, for people to just be able to live and to have the best opportunity. So I think for me, that's just what drives and inspires me. But it is rooted in my grandparents and my mother and her journey. And, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. And look at the impact that her daughters and, that we were able to have in a community. And I think to me, I know we all have the ability to make a change like that. And so we've seen great contributions from our immigrant communities. So much so where often they don't even receive benefits, right, from our government. So I think it's just, we have to remember, the truth, and we have to make sure we keep telling people that.
That's, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me find my train of thought. Yeah, so I've read so much research describing like the impacts that immigration enforcement has, not just on immigration impacted families and communities, but the broader community. So it is just very interesting to see a lot of the recommendations from that research being put into place in the city of Riverside. But on a somewhat different note, more so on the case of housing policy, which you are very active in, Riverside needs more homes while also protecting current residents. What mix of tools can deliver both at once? For example, by right approvals on key corridors, motel conversions, inclusionary requirements that pencil, and renter protections that prevent displacement. How will you decide where each tool fits, and what evidence would make you adjust course if results are not reaching the neighborhoods with the greatest needs?
Great question. I love that. Yes. So I'm proud to be the chair of housing and homelessness for the city of Riverside. I've been on the committee since I've been elected, and with the new change of council, I switched over my chairship to be there for the housing, because for me, this is the number one issue and crisis that we know we have to all be collectively working on. So with that, I will say that it's a multi-pronged approach, and I will say that this is one where you have to learn how to juggle very well. Because I was just to share. I think within my first 2 years, we were able to get change and actually update our multi-crime free housing policy. We actually removed it. It was actually serving as a barrier to keep folks that had potentially had any type of, let's say, formerly incarcerated, or even had any type of justice background, history. It allowed for apartments or complexes to be prejudiced against them and essentially discriminate and say that, well, if you have a certain background, I don't have to let you live here. And so that was obvious. That's a barrier, right? There's an immediate barrier. Or even it said too that if someone were to apply Let's say a family were to apply and your partner or someone has again, maybe a misdemeanor or something from the past, you still couldn't even potentially be qualified, or what essentially leads to is family separation. So we had that serving as an ordinance that was a block, and it took some work, but we got that undone, removed. So now we were able to actually open up more access and opportunity for people to have direct access to housing. That was a huge win. So while that's happening, there's always projects that are being underway, whether it's being built construction housing in our ward or in the pipeline. So I meet with developers, and we actually have developers approach us that ask and want to have projects come into the ward and Riverside. I'll speak specifically for my ward, but we do get approached a lot. We have many housing projects underway right now that are mixed from, I believe actually, I don't know if we have any affordable underway right now, but I think we had a completion of several, but there's several market rate that are underway right now. And so with those, we have community meetings. Going back to community, we then help to arrange community meetings to get input, feedback, because of course, as you build, people are always like, what's coming next to me, or what impact is it going to have. So we help to facilitate those. But just to share one huge thing that we're going to hopefully find out soon is whether the city of Riverside actually is going to receive a state grant of $32 million to help to purchase a motel on University Avenue, less than half a mile from here, and turn it into permanent supportive housing. And this housing would prioritize and help specifically, potentially seniors, veterans, and those with mobility disabilities. They would be priority. But these are individuals, again, that are essentially, they're in the pipeline. They would be paying a subsidized portion of rent to actually live here. And it's right on University Avenue, access to public transit, access to a grocery store, banks, shopping center. I mean, it's like in a healthcare center, community center, future library. I mean, it's in the perfect location. And this to me is something that, it should be coming to council next couple of weeks, just to share for those who are tuning in, because we want to make sure we can get this across the finish line, because this has the potential to help about, over, I think, almost 100 individuals who could become housed, and converting these motel units that would become permanent units. And folks, again, would have the stability to live here, and we don't have enough of those available. So in this housing space, when I think about housing stock, we have to take, that's what I said, a multi-pronged approach. I'll be honest, you have to put your hands everywhere. Like, you have to reach out, and you have to be willing to work with nonprofit partners. You have to be willing to we work strongly with Path of Life, our family shelters, and it's listening. It's always listening to where can we close the gap. My team has been exploring how to create a safe parking pilot project where people who living in their cars can have a safe space to actually stay overnight. There's a cost associated with that, so we're hitting some barriers. So it's like when I hit barriers for funding, then I have to try to pivot and say, okay, where can we maybe find funding, or where could we look other ways to do this? So I will say it's always I think for myself, it's about trying to be innovative and creative with, trying to find new solutions, and and I will say not reinventing the wheel. We were inspired by what San Diego was doing, and recently I saw Long Beach is doing it too. So, and even other cities out in other states. And so I think for myself, I try to always have an open lens of what, again, are other municipalities doing that are being effective, especially when we get into housing affordability. Of course, how do we get more affordability ones on the market? And I will say it is advocating. When I meet with these developers, and there's folks that I've had projects where they've said zero affordable as full market rate. We've been able to squeeze in one or two affordable units, with conversation and asking if, again, that negotiations, and I think that your local elected officials have the power to negotiate in, and that's I believe my responsibility is to try to get as much different types of models of housing into not just into the pipeline, but actually built, shovels in the ground, built to where it gets to grand opening day and people are moving in their items, and we've been able to see that, and since the time being on council.
Yeah, that's very exciting to hear that, there's different projects for different types of housing. Like you said, the parking lot was super interesting, providing people a temporary space, a safe space that they can, they can stay there. Speaking of housing and homelessness, we like to talk about the long-term and short-term goals for these ongoing problems. If you could set 3 outcome targets for the next year that residents can track and see, what would they be, and why? And also, how would you align, like, different types of contracts, different staffing and partnerships, so funding that follows what the different projects.
Yes, great question. And it's so hard to choose, honestly. um, I'm going to take probably, I don't know if I'm going to answer this, because I feel like there's so many different ways to go with this question, but I'll share a little bit kind of tied into what we're doing, I guess, and actively in a way prioritizing right now, but then, I guess the dreaming kind of portion too. The first I'll say is this, and kind of building off of what I just mentioned with the Safe Pilot parking project, when we had to decide too is off the cusp of who could we serve doing this. Immediately, and one of the things I've learned, again, being the chair in this position, I'll say that my team has proactively been going out to meet with nonprofits who serve our most unhoused or people on the cusp of homelessness, or those who are. But we have been, the preventative approach, I'll say, is one of the most key pieces that I've been learning. I've learned is like, if you have to get people before they're unhoused, as much as possible, because once they become unhoused, it's this like spiral, right? It's so much harder to get them back in for a variety of different reasons. And I think that's been for me now more recently this last year. It's not being on the side of, how they say it's like being reactive, like, oh, we have to react because it's like, we're having this many families have now fallen. We have this call, we're short shelter beds. But instead, okay, so how do we avoid that even coming to fruition? So now with the preventative part, I feel like I've tried to switch gears now the last couple of years. And so in conversations with groups like Family Promise of Riverside, a wonderful nonprofit, they shared with me data that I wasn't aware of, and it was the number of families, children that are technically considered unhoused in the Riverside and Alvord Unified School District. So we know that there's a population there, right there. And we know that if you are, again, unhoused as a child, it's going to have of course, long-term mental health impacts on you, especially if you're having to go and be in a homeless shelter. But additionally, the layers that usually come with it, there's usually food insecurity, there's usually lack of sleep, lack of hygiene, and other things that are going to affect them when they go to school. And then we know that has a huge impact down the line for the whole rest of someone's life, right? And the barriers that they have to then overcome. So how can we prioritize those families that we know are immediately in our community? And I think that has been the new shift that we've been trying to figure out how to address. And this is where one of them, the Safe Parking Pilot Project, we look to see that this could be one of the sites, because we know there are families right now that are literally sleeping in their cars and children with them that are going to school, our schools here in Riverside. So with that, how could we help to address that? And that's where Family Promise was really helpful, and even Path of Life, and conversating with me to say, how can we get to these people first? And specifically, and I think that's where it gets challenging, because of course we do have different initiatives. Sometimes we work to really try to help our veterans, other times women and children, mothers as well. I've been having conversations with our deaf community who are sharing here. We have a very rich and very robust deaf community here. We have the California School of the Deaf, and I'm hearing from constantly our deaf residents that they need housing, that they also are struggling. So again, this preventative approach for me, I think, and looking at right now our school districts and families in need has been a new area that we've been really trying to enhance and start to bring people to the table. I think another one is, and I will say, is that the pipeline of permanent supportive housing. So the city does have several old motels that are not just in Ward 2. I think Ward 6 is another one that we've been looking at. Councilmember Perry has been working with staff to identify folks, parts in his district. I think they've been trying to find others in the city. But that is one, I don't want to say quick and easy way, but if you can purchase, right, like with this potential one, if you can purchase one and turn it over, because then you have to actually construct it within less than a year. So it's fast. That's bringing right online permanent about, over, if you can do anywhere from, right, I'd say, we always say any number of a new unit online is great, but if you're doing, 50 to hundreds or more, that's like mind-blowing huge, especially that's why the state is making those incentives to local government to do these types of projects so that we can get more online, faster housing. And then I think that the last thing I'll highlight is, I guess I'm trying to think, specific to housing, or is it tied to unhoused other layers as well?
Whatever you feel like.
Okay. I think I want to say that one thing I've been actually, another thing this is new to the air. I haven't actually shared this live. I want to explore, and I was inspired again on something I saw on Instagram. There's another city, another state, and they actually provide It's like a pop-up, but it's mobile showers where folks can come and get like a fresh haircut, and like they do it weekly, and it's actually funded by the public community. And so it's just so beautiful to see the stories of someone, and it shows up before and after of them, right, going in, and how they come out and they're like a brand new human being. And it's like the premise is always just treating people with dignity, and one thing I was proud that we did, and I had asked for in the beginning of coming on the committee, was actually asking how we could share our wins and success stories and really humanize and make sure that the public see that these are real people we're helping, and showing that, yes, there's someone who maybe frankly lived in the river bottom, but then after so many years, after 50 asks, said, yes, I'm going to take the help. And then we have a story of them actually with keys in hand, living in their new apartment, that we were able to help them move. Took time, but we got them there. And the city's been sharing those wins and those stories on social media. And I will say that the comments are very heartwarming and make me really feel, they give me hope, again, for how people see, because there is a dehumanization when we often talk about our unhoused population. And so, yes. And so I think that has been something that I'd love to see how we can truthfully have more empathy, and just even helping, even if someone's not ready to say yes to taking the step to get help in housing and getting off the streets potentially, if for whatever reason, how can we at least make them walk away where they feel like, again, clean, like I got a shower, I feel better. We all know a shower can change your life for a day, like how you feel afterwards. And it's like giving someone that, or giving them, and they also provide available like laundromat service that's on like for a moving one, so they could do their laundry. So it's like giving them clean clothes, clean shower, food, and just charge your phone, whatever it is. But it's like sounds like the most basic thing, but that could be transformative. So I actually would love to. That's one thing I was going to be asking my team to start exploring a little more, is what could we do as a city? And again, even if we don't fund it, is this something our community would help to fund? Is that something Riverside would be willing to get behind? So these are some of, I think, the, again, creative and different things that we try to do to take approaches. Yeah, and I think, sorry, was it Snap? I'm trying to read your comments. Oh, fast. Okay, never mind.
Dignity truly is so important, especially when you're trying to get out of a difficult situation. And another thing that you've mentioned throughout this series of questions is accessibility. And housing really only works when people can move safely and affordably. So what is your vision for a connected network of safe walking and biking streets that links homes to campuses, jobs, and parks? And which corridors should move first and why? How will you coordinate with RTA on bus frequency and first and last mile links? If a design choice improves safety but slows car travel, how will you explain that trade-off to residents?
Yes, I love it. Great question. So just to share, I have a master's in urban regional planning, and my emphasis was transportation planning and policy. So this is right up my alley. I actually used to in the past serve as the chair under RTA. There's different chapters, and I was a chair for Riverside chapter for a couple of years. And what we worked on was always community discussion around closing the last mile gaps and what were some challenges at specific stops. So I'm proud to say I've had a good relationship with RTA for over the years. I'm the alternate right now. Councilmember Hemingway is actually the chair right now of the board, executive board. So basically, he's never misses a meeting, so I never get to go. But I'm proud to be an alternate if ever could be there. But I will say with that, RTA is fantastic. We have a fantastic public transit agency. They do phenomenal work. There's a union behind them, ATU Local 1277, that are essentially the ones that represent the bus drivers and so many of the mechanics employees. They do a phenomenal job. And so I think one of the things and the biggest barriers that we've seen, just to share, has been since COVID, they were on a rise in terms of ridership, like students riding in the community. It's free for students, by the way, just to share a reminder, for all college students, by the way, not just UCR, all colleges and all community colleges and campuses across the entire Riverside County. But I will share that they were on a rise. COVID hit, and it's the decline, and it's been so hard to get folks back to using public transit again. I just think it's a mindset, to be very honest, and then that's been one of my biggest passions, is to enhance public transit and essentially really shift people's mindset of utilizing it, and how we need to figure out how we can change that mentality, because I will say the service is available, it's there. Most people just don't realize it. There's actually great service. It's about 20-minute right now, and if we see an increase in ridership, frequency can increase. So that's how people don't sometimes realize transit works. they can't have a bus coming every 5 minutes if there's no one on it, right? I mean, they can, sometimes there can be if there's lulls, but like you need to have big periods where people are being moved in order for that efficiency to be picked up. But right now it's about 20 minutes between majority of stops from last time I checked, which is actually really great. That's, you can plan out, right? Every 20 minutes, like, okay, if something's changing your times, doctor's appointment, you can plan ahead doctor's appointments and things. So I'll just say that aside from that, RTA being great, huge plug for them. For all the other work my office does, that's like like with being an urban planner, I feel like that's part of my core, and environmental planner too, is how are we building walkable communities? And one of my favorite pastimes to actually do is to go travel. And I feel like such a nerd saying this, but I like to go and just explore cities and be like, let me try their public transit. Can I easily get from point A to point B? And I get so inspired. And when it's like really good, I'm just like, oh, this is good. Like, we need to do this in Riverside. And so I like to go other places and just be inspired and see like what works and then what doesn't work. But it's like there's so many great cities, communities like Washington, like Oregon. I've heard Chicago's good. I haven't been there. People always tell me you need to go there. But those municipalities, like they just have great light rails. They have efficient public transit, and I feel like those are models that often inspire me. And they're very green. We actually we are a tree city. We are a very green community. Recently, with a grant that we got, Transformative Climate Communities grant from the state. We got $32 million invested in the east side. A good portion of that money was actually doing everything you said in the beginning, improving walkability. So essentially improving lighting in different areas, improving bike paths, complete road repaving in certain areas of the community, adding 2,000 trees to help with CO2 emissions, but also for shading. So making it so that in the future, people are it's gonna look, I mean, if you know Riverside, the Wood Streets, or if you've been there, the trees are overgrowing and like meeting in the center. So like when you're walking down, it's just gorgeous. Like it's shaded for most of the year. And that encourages people to go out right again and walk, and not for so many different reasons. But again, California gets hot. We need shade. Let's be real. So right now, that has never been the case for the east side. We have a lot of trees, but not to what we've seen in other parts of the city. So that was for Ward 2. That has been one of the biggest things that we have worked on, is even connecting our different corridors like Canyon Crest. We added the barriers so that people could safely ride their bikes to be able to go from campus to Canyon Crest, and even up and down Martin Luther King Jr., going down Iowa, then coming down University. So I will say connectivity is so important, like, and making sure people feel safe. And that's the next layer. And I will say we actually use art as a piece of that. So you maybe notice Ward 2 has a lot of murals. We're very proud of them. My office has been worked even before being elected. Previous Councilmember Randy Melendrez was a huge champion of the arts. I'm grateful I worked with him to help get a lot of the murals going and started on the east side. We just picked up that baton and went running even harder. I'm an artist, so I was like, put all the murals everywhere. Everyone knows I'm always advocating for art. But I will say that just to do a quick plug, we did author and champion a artist in residency pilot project, which the council approved. There are currently right now 6 artists that have been selected and are in the community, and they are going to be working to bring anywhere from 7 to 14 new murals across the wards in Riverside. So, and the intent though, again, is based on research I did that showed when you have art in these public walkways and spaces, people actually are more encouraged to walk. They feel safer, it beautifies their community, and it brings neighborhood pride. So there is research I've done behind to see the impact that has in these areas. So I will just say that art for us is a driver that we like to always think about, and especially when we think about, well, where are people going to see it? Oh, if they're driving or walking, right? But I think I always like to think of how can art be partially what encourages people. And I'd love to see University Avenue be where it's like people are just walk up and down all day, the whole way from downtown coming up to UCR. And I know we're going to get there, but it's been a work in progress. But we've seen really good changes. And I love to see that the hub around here, especially over by Iowa University, has become busier. And we've been seeing that in other parts of the community as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your insights. It's really great to hear, how the system is all interconnected, and how like the RTA Riverside Transit administration works with pathways, and like works with like everything that happens in the city. And thank you for shedding a light on that. To shift gears a bit, policy often comes with its struggle, and one of the biggest struggle is budgets. Budgets, they force choice. They can help with like big wins and that like require different partners. Can you name 3 investment that you would protect because they create the most long-term public value for Ward Ward 2 and also for Riverside City overall? And can you also name one program that you would consider consolidating or ending, and explain the criteria that you would use?
Thank you for that question. I think the first, and I will say off the cusp, that when I think about what we have to invest with the budget and what is one of the biggest things we're always having to balance and weigh are our employees that we employ. We're one of the largest employers here in the city of Riverside, for our community. And it's a lifeline. We're essentially, we are government though, but we employ thousands of people. So it's a huge responsibility. And with that, we have to balance our budget to factor in pensions, union contracts. And that's a big thing. We have, just to share, some of the unions we have included that represent employees, SCIU 721. We have IBW, and then we also have the police union and firefighters union as well. So we have constant conversations about those negotiations, bargaining, cost of living, right, that are going up. And so there's a lot that I've had to learn as a council member what that entails when you get into especially the pension portion. And so I think for myself that I will always invest though in our working people and our families, the individuals who literally keep our city running, my staff, my team that helped me to keep Ward 2 functioning and addressing quality of life issues. The people who help run Riverside, it's phenomenal. Like, what we do is incredible. I'm always in awe of City Hall and our city government. So they will always, to me, be the priority to make sure we can keep people, again, working and investing in really, the people who then choose to live and work here in Riverside. Some of them live, but I'd say a lot of our city staff I know here, and if they don't live here, they're committed to our community. So that's one. And I think another one that we have to always be mindful, because what keeps things going, of course, to fund a lot, is the general fund. There's different areas that factor into what helps support the general fund, different measures that have been passed. So I think for myself, constantly making sure that the general fund just helps us sustain a lot of everything else that keeps the city going. So that is a huge one that I feel like we have to always just be very cognizant about, and how we're balancing our budgets. And I think we've been very intentional. I've been proud. I've asked some very hard questions, and we've had to make some adjustments over the last couple of years, especially this last year. We have been projecting for a decline. There has been a decline in economic revenue, I will say, for the city here, and it's happening. This is unfortunately what we're seeing in Trump's economy. And so I think that is one thing, is just the stability of the general fund and the budget as a whole is something that I would always keep very closely in mind. It's very hard to say what I would cut. I don't think I want to go there. I never want to imagine having to reduce. I'm always trying to dream about going, because then I will say this is where we have to get creative again. And we have been getting creative, and, just to share kind of a little, we recently finally got our cannabis policy and ordinance done, but that's a revenue of $1 million, roughly, approximately at minimum, that we could be receiving from some of these cannabis storefronts. So it's like, there are things we could do as a city to generate new revenue. I think that's our responsibility, so we don't have to get to where we have to discuss cuts. But I will say that always investing in the people first. And I'm trying to think if there's another program specifically that I'd highlight. There's so many that we do. It's so hard to choose. I think just because, given the topic of housing urgency and unhoused, I will say that the funding that we have, that we allocate, all the funding that comes in, that goes directly to helping get our shelters funded, and then also any of the ones that are helping with rental assistance, permanent supportive housing, anything that's supporting our housing and housing and human services department, I think right now is a lifeline. So I would say that just all the programming there that's enveloped is what I have to just right now say I personally am prioritizing, and that I always fight to save and protect and make sure we don't change, touch it. But just to add though, one thing we did do is just on Tuesday, the council reallocated. There was enough money so we could reallocate it, but we reallocated from a senior rental assistance program. There was still other funding available, but we shifted $100,000 to help to fill the gap for Riverside residents, SNAP beneficiaries, and federal employees and veterans who need food food emergency assistance. So we just put that money aside into the Salvation Army, and they're going to be helping us in that capacity. Just to share again, though, that there's always things your government can do to help to meet the need and close the gap, especially when we're dealing with this federal government shutdown.
Yeah, and a lot of what you just said really like lines up with our theme for our 10-year anniversary of abundance and growing the pie, not having to sacrifice one thing to grow another program.
I love that.
Yeah. So here at the School of Public Policy, we like to discuss solutions for the region, solutions for the world. You've mentioned the importance of safety, art, a beautiful community, transportation. What is one Riverside idea you believe you could scale across the Inland Empire or even statewide, and what proof would convince other cities to adopt it?
Ooh, that's fun. Oh my God. That's hard. Dang. I think I'm gonna go with the art one. I think because it's so people don't realize, and this is what I've been really trying to elevate in my fights and advocacy for more funding for the arts and for artists in our communities. Other cities that are investing in their arts, like Florida, they have their wide open walls, Long Beach, even LA, but like I would say that there's just some cities, like in Tampa Bay, they have this really great like whole thing. Long story short, they have events that bring in millions of dollars in one weekend. We're talking over $30 million because they are literally opening up their buildings and attracting the highest, most incredible artists internationally. And it's like a show, like come watch us paint a skyscraper of a building in like 3 days, and people love it. And it's just like I've seen Hawaii has it. There's a really great exhibition that moves around called Powwow, and but that's what they do. They go around, and I've been trying to beg my city managers to be like, get Riverside, get them to come to Riverside. But what we've seen is that when cities invest in the arts into art districts, and when they really, prioritize the arts, I will say I'm so proud we have the Cheech. We have the Cheech Marin Chicano Art Center, the only Chicano art center in the world. I'm now trying to pivot to like poke people because I hear rumors he wants to have a lowrider museum. I'm like, yes, bring it to Riverside. Because that's the thing is when you have something that is one of a kind, you are going to attract people, right, internationally. And we have actually been seeing that with the Cheech. We had Bill Gates come down to join us. I think he's a beneficiary that supports and funds it as well. But, we've been able to attract some really big, I'd say attention, but not even from billionaires, but from everyday people that see a reflection, right, of the art in themselves. And I think that that's where, for me, art is always going to be just such a powerful medium for us to reach people in ways that sometimes we can't as a government, like by talking, policy, and like, I hate to say it, but it's like maybe a language people don't understand, or it's not something that they're as passionate about. But people are almost always moved by art, whether you're moved in a good or bad way or something in between. You're going to have an opinion, you're going to have a feeling. But then for me, I think with art, that's very intentional, because that's reflective of the communities it's representing, the diverse communities, that's storytelling. I just feel like it has the ability to have such an impact on a person, whether that's their ability to dream, see themselves in the world, know they belong, be inspired. I could go on, but I just feel that we don't often realize that, art has the power to also fund and promote and elevate cities. And we are the city of arts and innovation. So I'm always trying to figure out how could we catapult the arts and make sure that we are leaning into that, because art brings joy, right? Creativity, imagination. And I think when we do think about a future of cities, we need to have imagination. We have to dream big. We have to dream about what is and we have to realize our dreams are going to be different for other people. But then there's sometimes dreams that we have, and then they like stick, and then they come to life, and then we're just like, oh my God, like, is this reality? Like, are we actually? So I love when we get those moments, when we hit those pinnacles. And I feel like we've done that a lot here in Riverside, especially over the last couple of years. So I'd say I will say that the work that we've done in Ward 2 has been inspired, like Moreno Valley, like the mayor of Moreno Valley, Ulysses Cabrera, and we've had so many discussions. And before he went from council member to mayor, he was like, I want to do what you're doing in my city. And he's doing it. And he has now the arts is spring, and now Paris is doing it. And so like, you're already actually and Redlands is doing it in San Bernardino. So like, we're actually seeing it actually happen, where that is now becoming an activator. And it makes me so much joy, as you could tell. I love it, because I feel like I'm just seeing so many good things come from it. And of course, from it, it's inspiring people to get involved, whether it's politically, activism. Obviously we're seeing rallies with a lot of great, cool art. Also, posters. We had the Persist conference, and 3 posters were actually selected by local artists. I was proud to be one of them about immigrant rights. Yeah, one of them was mine. There was Jared Wright, and then it was Julie Rose and myself. For over 100 people to have a piece of art to take home that we made, and that is again something they felt connected to. I don't know. I just feel like there's so much power in that. So I'm always going to be a champion of the arts, and I truly believe that it has the impact to have a great change in so many countless communities and spaces.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I was so inspired and moved by your mini speech there.
Thank you.
Beforehand, I didn't realize how much art can really affect a city.
Yes.
And it's and all the components that comes with it, financially, how art can draw people in and provide funding for the city, and also how art affect the local residents there. So I'm truly blown away from how art has impacts. So with that, I think it's a great way to end our podcast here. Thank you so much again for coming onto Policy Chats, and thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with you all. Thank you for the work you do to uplift and create safe spaces like this for us to have discussions, and just grateful for School of Public Policy. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Policy Chats, the official podcast of the UC Riverside School of Public Policy. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us on Instagram at UCR_SPP. To learn more about our program and upcoming episodes, visit spp.ucr.edu. For the video version of this episode, check out our YouTube channel at UCR School of Public Policy. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.